process engineering, we study about fluid mechanics, hydrology, hydraulics, and irrigation. In fluid mechanics, we study properties of fluids, fluid statics, fluid dynamics, fluid kinematics, and flow through pipes like that. So in this video, we are going to learn some concepts behind properties of fluids and the manometry and corresponding pressure measurement. Now let's get into it. First question is, the normal stresses within an isotropic Newtonian fluid is related to option A pressure, option B velocity gradient, option C viscosity of fluid, option D width of fluid element. So normal stresses are related to what are the parameters among the four options. There may be more than one options are correct. So it's a MSQ type question, multiple select type. So the answers are option A, B, C. Three things, three parameters are correct regarding the Newtonian fluid with respect to normal stresses. So normal stresses within an isotropic Newtonian fluid is related to pressure, velocity gradient, and viscosity of fluid. Now let's see more about Newtonian fluids. So in case of Newtonian fluid, shear stress and the velocity gradient is related by this formula. Tau is equal to nu du by dy. What is nu? Nu is nothing but constant of proportionality, and that is nothing but dynamic viscosity. And the dynamic viscosity unit is given by this Newton second per meter square, or we can say Pascal second. And this is the dimensional formula for dynamic viscosity, m L power minus 1 T power minus 1. And another unit for dynamic viscosity is poise. So one poise is given by 1 by 10th of Newton second per meter square, or we can say 0.1 Newton second per meter square. Water is 55 times viscous than air. So water has high viscosity when comparing to air. Air has very less viscosity, and viscosity of water is given by cohesion, and less. And in case of air, viscosity is provided by molecular momentum transfer. So there are two things: cohesion and molecular momentum transfer. So in case of liquids, viscosity is due to cohesion, and in case of air, that will be due to molecular momentum transfer. And there is another thing, kinematic viscosity, and that is nothing but ratio of dynamic viscosity to density of that liquid or air of that fluid actually. It is denoted by gamma. So gamma is equal to nu by rho, and the unit of kinematic viscosity is meter square per second. Therefore, dimensional formula lies here, L square T power minus 1. And another unit is choke, and one choke is given by 10 power minus 4 meter square per second. And when we compare kinematic viscosity of air and liquid or air and water, kinematic viscosity of air is more. How much? 15 times greater than water, greater than that of water. But in case of dynamic viscosity, water is greater, and in case of kinematic viscosity, air is greater by 15 times than water, because you can see in this formula divided by density. Density of air is very less. It's around 1.2 kilogram per meter cube. But density of water is very high. It is 1000. So that's why kinematic viscosity of air is greater than water. But dynamic viscosity of water is greater than air. So how much time? 55 times. Here 15 times. Now let's move on to second question. The work done in blowing a soap bubble of diameter 20 centimeter is how much? In terms of into 10 power minus 3 Newton meter. So assume surface tension as 0.040 Newton per meter. So this problem is completely based on surface tension, and they have given soap bubble. So how to calculate the work done? By using the pressure value, they have to calculate pressure inside the soap bubble. So option B is the correct one. Now let's see how it's calculated. Soap bubble has two interfaces. How? consider this as a soap bubble. So there will be hollow inside the soap bubble and outer atmospheric pressure. So that's why two interfaces. It is unlike water droplet. In water droplet, only one interface, only one atmospheric pressure will be there and no inside pressure. But soap bubble has two interfaces. One is inside air and one is outside air. So how the pressure will be calculated inside a hollow bubble? Like this. Pressure is equal to 8 sigma by d. But here in this question, we have to find only the work done. So work done is given by surface tension into total surface area, and the surface tension is already given 0.040, that is sigma value. Sigma value is given as 0.040 into total surface area. So the surface area of sphere is given by 4 pi r square. So 4 pi r square. There are two interfaces, so that's why into 2. That gives the answer as 10.05 into 10 power minus 3. So option B is correct. Now let's see other types of pressure inside some other types of droplets and jet. For water droplet, pressure inside is given by 4 sigma by d. D is nothing but diameter of water droplet, and sigma is surface tension. And in case of liquid jet, it shall be 2 sigma by d. So these are three formulas regarding pressure inside by using the surface tension values. And the liquid droplet shall be of spherical shape because the spherical shape has the minimum surface area. So by getting the minimum surface area, the shape is got as sphere. So sphere shape of liquid droplet is due to minimum surface area, unlike other shapes. Now let's move on to third question. Classify the fluid based on the results. So results they have given in a tabular column. On the basis of this result, we have to find what is the type of fluid, whether it is Bingham plastic or ideal fluid or Newtonian or pseudoplastic. So on the basis of the given data or the given result, just draw a graph and find the type of liquid, type of fluid. So on the basis of the given data, option A is correct, Bingham plastic. Now let's see how it is observed. Linear shear stress versus shear rate behavior. So by getting this, by considering this data, we can draw a graph like this. At 0, shear stress is 1. At 2, at 0, shear stress is 1. And at 0.5, shear stress is 2. So the graph will go like this. So what does it mean? Here, one initial stress has to be given to initiate the flow. So that means it is a Bingham plastic fluid. In Bingham plastic and rheopatic thixotropic fluid like these fluids, we have to give initial shear stress to initiate the flow. So that's why here at a zero at zero shear rate, we are giving stress as initial by 1 unit. Just consider by this given result. So this is the basic observation. By using the graph between shear rate and shear stress, we can get the answer. Now let's see other important things of non-Newtonian fluids. So what is Newtonian fluid? We have already learned in previous question. And what is non-Newtonian fluid is given by this formula. Tau is equal to A du by dy power n plus b. So plus b is this value. This is the initial stress to flow, to actually flow the uh, to initiate the flow actually. But A into du by dy power n, and b here is not equal to 0 for Bingham plastic. So b shall be some value, so that the fluid based on Bingham plastic will get flow. And what is A and what is n? A is nothing but consistency index, and n is called as flow behavior index. So this is the formula for non-Newtonian fluids. So this is the formula for non-Newtonian fluids. You can refer it. And if n is less than 1, that is flow behavior index is less than 1, and that fluid shall be called as pseudoplastic. And pseudoplastic fluids are shear thinning fluids, and the apparent viscosity increases with the decrease in shear rate. These are inversely related. Apparent viscosity and shear rate are inversely related. So what is actually the apparent viscosity? Du by dy bar n minus 1. This is the actual apparent viscosity after taking this term as common. After taking this term out, we get a term like this, and this is called as apparent viscosity, denoted by eta. So this apparent viscosity decreases with increase in shear rate in case of pseudoplastic, and pseudoplastic fluids are shear thinning. For example, you can see here polymer solution, colloidal suspensions, milk, blood, paper pulp in water. These are some examples for pseudoplastic fluids. And what if n greater than 1? If flow behavior index greater than 1, then that fluid will be called as dilatant, and dilatant fluids are shear thickening fluids. So that's why apparent viscosity increases with the increase in shear rate. And examples are suspensions of starch, so saturated sugar solution. So these are some examples for dilatant. And when it comes to behavior with respect to time, there are two things: thixotropic, rheopatic. So apparent viscosity decreases with the time under constant applied shear stress. Here in thixotropic, viscosity decreases with the time. For example, paints, printer inks. And in case of rheopectic fluids, it increases with time. Apparent viscosity increases with time under constant applied shear stress. Example, gypsum pastes. So these are some of the non-Newtonian fluids and their behaviors. Let's see their respective graphs, how they are uh, playing in graph. So this is the graph you can refer. Shear stress versus deformation rate, and apparent viscosity versus deformation rate. Deformation rate is nothing but the shear rate, or we can say velocity gradient. There are various names for this: du by dy, change in velocity with respect to change in the length, dy. So here you can see pseudoplastic, n is less than 1, n is greater than 1 for dilatant. When it for Newtonian fluids, that is tau is equal to nu into du by dy, that when a fluid follows that equation, when we call that fluids as Newtonian fluids. And the Newtonian fluids like this: 45-degree, and other three types of fluids are this: thixotropic, Bingham plastic, rheopectic. So why when thixotropic is nothing but decreases with the time, and rheopectic refers to apparent viscosity increases with time at a constant shear rate. And these are the respective graphs. And when it comes to apparent viscosity versus deformation rate, pseudoplastic behaves like this: dilatant, Newtonian. Newtonian is horizontal, just an horizontal line, and dilatant like this, and pseudoplastic like this. So we can refer this graph to get an idea about what is that type of fluid with respect to the given data. Now let's move on to fourth question. Oil in an hydraulic cylinder is compressed from an initial volume of 2 meter cube to 1.96 meter cube. If the pressure of oil changes from 40 megapascal to 80 megapascal, the bulk modulus of elasticity of oil is. So bulk modulus of elasticity is denoted by capital K, and it has one formula, and by using that formula we can get the answer for this. And bulk modulus of elasticity is related to compressibility and inversely proportional. So the correct answer is option B, 2000 megapascal. Let's see how it's calculated. So take V1 as initial volume 2 meter cube, and V2 compressed volume 1.96. So difference in volume dV is given by V2 minus V1, so minus 0.04 meter cube. And initial pressure is 40 megapascal, and the final pressure for the compressive pressure is P280, So difference in pressure is 40 megapascal. And bulk modulus of elasticity is given by this formula. K is equal to minus dP divided by volumetric strain. So what is volumetric strain? Change in volume divided by original volume. So just substitute all the values. Original value has 2 meter cube to get the answer as 2000 megapascal. So option B is correct. And now let's see more about compressibility and bulk modulus. Compressibility is denoted by beta and it is nothing but inverse of bulk modulus. So that's why its unit is meter square per Newton. And the K value is not a constant parameter. Bulk modulus of a fluid is not constant. It increases with the increase in pressure. So whenever pressure is raised, bulk modulus increases. And for liquids, when it comes to temperature change, bulk modulus increases with the decrease in temperature. So inversely related. Bulk modulus and temperature in case of liquids. In case of gases, bulk modulus increases with increase in temperature, that is directly related. The velocity of sound can be found by using the bulk modulus value, and that formula is given by using this. C is equal to root of K by rho, and we can find using this formula also. How this is got? By using this value, minus dP divided by dV by V, and just substitute. In case of volume we can use pressure also. So D capital P divided by capital P, and P will be related to here dP. So root of dP, or we can say change in pressure divided by change in density. So this is how we can calculate the velocity of sound or the velocity of pressure wave in a fluid system. And K is nothing but K is infinity in case of truly incompressible fluids. For truly incompressible fluids, compressibility shall be 0. This is actually C, okay, beta value. Beta value shall be 0. That means we cannot compress that fluid. So that's why that's called truly incompressible fluids. So if beta is 0, then 1 by 0 is infinity. So for truly incompressible fluid, bulk modulus is infinity because compressibility is 0. So these are about the compressibility of fluids. Now let's see fifth question. Fifth question is based on capillary rise. And if angle of contact of a drop of liquid is acute, then cohesion is equal to adhesion. Cohesion is greater than adhesion. Cohesion shall be less than adhesion. Cohesion and adhesion have no connection with angle of contact. So when the angle of contact of a drop of liquid is acute, what is acute? Is less than 90 degree. So if it is there, you can refer to this diagram also to get an idea. What is the correct option? Option C. Cohesion is greater less than adhesion. Cohesion is less than adhesion. So this is the contact angle. This is the contact angle. So if the case is capillary rise, then cohesion shall be less than adhesion. That is adhesion. Adhesion means what? It's an attractive force between two different objects. Here atmosphere and here liquid medium. So attraction between two different objects. So that's why capillary rises happen. So the angle of contact is acute. Therefore, cohesion is less than adhesion. And in case of capillary fall, this is a capillary fall. How it is occurring? Because cohesive forces is larger than adhesive forces. So that's why angle will be obtuse. So you can see here, angle will be obtuse. Now let's see more about capillary action and its formula, how to calculate that. So capillarity is given by H is equal to 4 sigma cos theta by rho GD, and theta is the angle of contact, sigma is surface tension, and D is the diameter of capillary tube. This is the capillary tube. The diameter of this is denoted by small d, and the capillary tube size shall not be more than 6 mm. If it is more than 6 mm, then capillary rise is not at all noted. And if you want to note the rise or fall, we have to use capillary tube of size less than 6 mm only. That is, diameter of capillary tube shall not be greater than 6 mm. And when will rise happen? When will fall happen? Immersion of glass tube in water, and immersion, and in case of fall, immersion of glass tube in mercury. So you can see in this diagram. And the water immersion of glass tube in water is rise, and it is called as wetting because adhesion force is greater. That's why water will wet the surface of glass tube, but mercury does not wet the surface of glass tube, so that's why it is called non-wetting type. And when angle of contact is 0 degree, uh, 0 degree for what? Water in clean glass. So when water is in a clean glass, then angle of contact shall be 0 degree, and it is known as perfect wetting. And for mercury, angle of contact is 130 degree, which is nothing but obtuse angle. And at 20 degrees Celsius, a general empirical formula can be followed. H is equal to 0.3 divided by D, where D is nothing but diameter of capillary tube, and that will be in centimeter here, and the capillary rise shall be in meters. And some two assumptions are followed while calculating this while arriving this formula. What are those? Meniscus is assumed as spherical, so you can see here, this is the meniscus. This is the meniscus. This meniscus is assumed as spherical shape, and the surfaces are extremely clean. So surfaces of the capillary tube and water tub are extremely clean. So these are some two assumptions made to arrive the formula for capillarity. So what happens when on reducing the height of capillary tube? So what happens if the height of capillary tube got reduced? For example, say this capillary tube has an height about like up to this only. What happens? Capillary rise, that is the contact angle increases. So contact angle gets highly increased. Not like that. Okay. Contact angle gets highly increased. So here one angle, and but here an other angle. So contact angle gets highly increased for interface and decreases for non-wetting surface. In case of non-wetting, contact angle gets decreases. In case of wetting surface, contact angle gets increased when we reduce the height of capillary tube. So these are some important points regarding capillarity. Now let's see sixth question. The equation of velocity distribution over a plate is given by u is equal to 2y minus y square. So this is the equation of velocity distribution given. We have to assume nu, that is dynamic viscosity, as 8.6 pies. The shear stress at a point 15 centimeter from the boundary. So this is the boundary. We have to find the shear stress 15 centimeter above it. So how to calculate that? By using Newton's formula. Tau is equal to nu du by dy. We have already seen in the previous question. We have to use that formula to find the shear stress at a point 15 centimeter from the boundary. So the correct answer is option B, 1.46 Newton per meter square. Now let's see how it's calculated. So in the Newton's formula, Newton's relation between shear stress and velocity gradient, tau is equal to nu du by dy. We have to find du by dy value by differentiating the given distribution equation. So u is equal to y minus y square. On differentiating that equation with respect to y, we will get the answer as 2 minus 2y. And at 15 centimeter, or we can say 0.15 meter, we have to calculate that value. So du by dy is got as 1.7. So just substitute here into 8.6 poise. 8.6, 1 poise is nothing but 1 by 10th of Newton second per meter square. Then how many 8.6 poise? 8.60 by 10 into 1.7 gives 1.46 Newton per meter square as shear stress value for this problem. In case the velocity profile is parabolic, as when in some problems we can see velocity profile as parabolic, then what is the equation? In this problem also velocity profile is actually parabolic, but they have given the actual equation. But in some cases they don't give, they give only the profile shape. So for example, velocity profile is parabolic, then we have to adopt this formula: u is equal to ay square plus by plus c, and these constants a, b, c are found by boundary conditions. That is nothing but at y is equal to 0, what is the velocity? At y is equal to the plate or the thickness of flow, then what is the velocity? So this is how we have to find ABC value by using boundary conditions, and substitute all the things using du by dy, then find the shear stress using the Newton formula. Now let's move on to seventh question. The equivalent head of mercury corresponding to 3 kilopascal is. This is based on Pascal's law. We have to use that Pascal's law formula for pressure in static fluids to find the answer. A basic simple problem. Equivalent head of mercury corresponding to 3 kilopascal. They have given the pressure value as 3 kilopascal. We have to use specific gravity of mercury value to find the answer for equivalent head. So the correct answer is actually option B is there, 2.25. So how it is got? P is equal to rho g h, and h is equal to 3 kilopascal. Actually 3000 Pascal or Newton per meter square divided by rho of mercury, that is density of mercury is 13.6 into 1000 into 10 power 3. So this will get cancelled out into G value 9.81 meter per second square. So we get the answer as 2.25 centimeter. So this is a simple problem. Now let's see 8th question. Which one of the following pressure units represents the least pressure? Option A millibar, option B mm of Hg, Hg is mercury, option C Newton per millimeter square, option D kilogram force per centimeter square. So which unit represents the least amount or least pressure? Millibar, mm of mercury, Newton per millimeter square, kilogram force per centimeter square. So least is millibar. Millibar is the least among the four options. Now let's see various other units with respect to atmospheric pressure. On atmospheric pressure is given by like this: 10.1 meter of water, or it can be 760 of mercury, or it can be called as 1013 millibar, or it can be called as 101.3 kilopascal, or in pounds per square inches it is 14.696 psi, and in case of kilogram volts per centimeter square it shall be 1.013. So these many ways we can define one atmosphere, and one bar is nothing but 10 power 5 pascal, that is 1 lakh pascal. One bar is nothing but 10 power 5 pascal, and by uh, by observing these values we can arrange all the things in ascending order. 1 millibar is less than 1 mmHg, and that will be less than kilogram force per centimeter square, and that will be less than 1 pascal. 1 pascal is the highest unit among these four, and 1 millibar is the least pressure unit. So that's why option A is correct. And 1 mm of Hg is can be called as 1 torr. 1 torr is equal to 1 mm of Hg. And in barometer, that is barometer is used to measure atmospheric pressure, and in barometer mercury is used because of two reasons: because mercury is a high density fluid and it has low vapor pressure, so such that it cannot vapor out by having by having low vapor pressure. So that's why mercury is used. And what on atmospheric pressure shall be defined by these many ways. Now let's move on to ninth question. The figure shows a U tube having 5 cross 5 mm square cross section. So this cross section is 5 cross 5 mm square, filled with mercury up to 20 centimeter. So here 20 centimeter, and in each limb, actually in each limb, this is mercury is filled up to 20 centimeter. And if 5 cubic centimeter cube of water is added to the left limb, so we are adding 5 centimeter cube of water in the left limb. The new height of the mercury in the right limb, actually this is right, in the right limb. So the right limb, what is the new height? We have to find that. So option A 20.74 centimeter, option B 23.59 centimeter, option C 38.16, option D 21.47. So just calculate by using one concept behind it. So option is option A, correct answer 20.74 centimeter. So concept behind this calculation is the conservation of volume. So conservation of volume is the main concept behind this. How when we add something in a left limb, the same amount of rise will be happen in the other limb. So this is the conservation of volume. So rise is equal to fall. Whatever the rise happening here, whatever the rise happening other limb, the same fall, same amount of fall will be there in the left limb. So this is how conservation of volume occurs. Now height of water added is, so 5 cubic centimeter of water is added. So what is the corresponding height? We can find that by using cross-sectional area of the tube. What is the cross-sectional area? 5 mm square. So 5 into 5, 25, and we are calculating in terms of centimeter square. So that's why 0.25. So 5 by 0.25 gives 20 centimeter of water column is added. So 20 centimeter water is added here, and let's say some x amount of fall is there and rise, corresponding rise is there in other limb. So pressure in both the limbs will be same. Pressure in both limbs PA and PB shall be same, and PA and PB are exposed to atmosphere, and no other pressure is acting on the limbs, the two limbs. So that's why 13,600 is nothing but 13.6 into 1000 for mercury, density of mercury in kilogram per meter cube, and into G into 2x. How 2x? Here you can find 2x. In here they have equated the right limb equal to left limb actually. So in right limb 13,600 G into 2x, and in left limb there is water, equal water, and 1000 into G into 20. So 20 centimeters is the water column added externally. So by equating these two things we get x value, that is the rise, and the corresponding fall value as 0.735 centimeter. So what is the actual height or the new height of mercury in the right limb? Before adding it was 20 centimeter. Now after adding the water, the rise is 0.735. So therefore 20.735 gives 20.74 centimeter as the new height of mercury in the right limb. This is how we have to calculate the pressure and the manometric problems. Now let's see 10th question. This is also based on manometer, and it is inclined. For the inclined manometer, the pressure difference will be, so they have given all the things in the diagram. So in option, first let's see the options. Option A 55.65 Newton per meter square, option B 48.50, option C 78.5, option D 39.6. So with respect to the diagram, we have to find the pressure difference. It is as like as the previous problem, but only thing is it is inclined. So correct answer is option C 78.5. A simple calculation, only thing is we have to multiply sine 30 degree to if it was vertical, so what will be the value? Just multiply that with sine theta. And if it if you want that as horizontal, we want to multiply cos 30 degree, but that is not the case in this manometric problem. We have to find in a vertical manner. So that's why sine 30 degree multiply. So PA is equal to, so PA is equal to PB because datum is here. So nothing is there in this pipe A. So that's why straightly we gone to B pipe. So pipe B, PV plus 20 mm, so 0.02 into zero point 0.8. So the pipe is filled with alcohol with a relative density or specific gravity is 0.8 into G value 9.81. So in order to get it straight, we are multiplying that with sine 30 degree, and we got the answer as 78.5 Newton per meter square. So this is the basic manometric problems. We have to proceed like this only. And there are many types of manometers. For example, piezometer. Piezometer is the simplest manometer, and after that YouTube manometer, and after that an inclined limb, and vertical single column manometer is there. What is that? Reservoir is there in a manometer. Actually, a reservoir will be present, so that a minor change in the pressure shall be calculated by using del H value. This is the purpose of a vertical single column manometer. A very minor change in pressure between two pipes shall be calculated by using this del H value and by considering the cross-sectional area of this reservoir. So this is the purpose of vertical single column manometer. An inclined single column manometer. When the limb is inclined like this, then there will be some angle of inclination. So in order to get straight, we have to multiply sine theta, as like in this problem. And there is something called differential manometer. And in differential manometer, this is nothing big, because we have to find the pressure difference between two pipes. So that's why differential manometer is used. And in the same way, inverted manometer. In inverted manometer, specific gravity of the manometric fluid shall be less than the flowing fluid. So that's the basic concept. Or we can find other things also. Here oil, here water, like this. So this is the basic concept behind these types of manometers to find pressure of flowing fluid, or pressure difference between pressure difference between two fluids running in two pipes. So these are the functions of manometer. Now we are at the end of this video. If you like this video, please like, comment, share with your friends. Thank you.